In October 2022, the autonomous underwater vehicle Sebastian, operated by the Schmidt Ocean Institute aboard the research vessel Falkor, conducted a series of dives in the Clarion-Clipperton Fracture Zone in the Central Pacific, a region of the seafloor between Mexico and Hawaii that has been the subject of intense scientific interest due to its vast deposits of polymetallic nodules rich in manganese, cobalt, nickel, and rare earth elements. During the fifth dive of the campaign, at a depth of 4,200 meters, Sebastian's cameras captured something that the operators on the surface had not expected to find and had not recorded on any previous dive to those depths. A large object in motion, moving across the seafloor at a speed and with a movement pattern that the team's marine biologists could not immediately assign to any known organism from the deep Pacific. The object measured between 2 and 3 meters in length according to the estimate of the technicians who analyzed the images based on the scale references provided by the geological structures of the seabed. It moved continuously without the intermittency that characterizes the movement of most organisms on the seabed, and it did not emit any bioluminescent signal detectable by the vehicle's sensors. Like, subscribe, and share. Let's begin. The Schmidt Ocean Institute is a non-profit organization founded by Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, and his wife Wendy Schmidt, to support cutting-edge ocean science research. The Falkor and its successor, the Falkor 2, are state-of-the-art research platforms that have made some of the most significant discoveries in marine biology in recent years since their commissioning, including the discovery of new species of Siphonophora, the longest-known colonial organisms, cold-water coral reefs in Australian waters, and previously unknown hydrothermal vent systems in several regions of the Pacific. The Sebastian is the Falkor 2's deep-sea ROV, capable of operating at depths of up to 4,500 meters with a 250-kilogram payload of scientific equipment and 4K high-definition camera systems that transmit real-time images back to the ship on the surface. The dives in the Clarion-Clipperton area in October 2022 were part of an environmental impact assessment campaign of polymetallic nodule mining on the seabed, a topic of increasing economic and scientific relevance given the critical role of the minerals contained in those nodules in the manufacture of batteries for electric vehicles and renewable energy technology. The movement of the object recorded by the Sebastian was the first thing that caught the attention of the operators on the surface. The Clarion-Clipperton Zone is an environment of relatively low but not non-existent biological activity. The polymetallic nodules that cover the seabed like a dark mosaic support communities of specialized organisms that have evolved over millions of years to take advantage of the limited energy resources available in that environment. Sea cucumbers, fragile starfish, polychaete sponges, and a wide variety of crustaceans and mollusks live in association with the nodules, and the movement of these organisms is perfectly familiar to biologists who study the ecosystem. The movement of the object recorded by the Sebastian was radically different from that of any of those organisms. Sustained, directional, and at a speed that the technicians estimated at between 0.3 and 0.5 meters per second, which for an organism on the seabed at a depth of 4,200 meters represented an unusually high speed. The biologists on board the Falkor reviewed the comprehensive catalog of known organisms from the Central Pacific seafloor in the hours following the capture of the images. The Clarion-Clipperton area has been the subject of systematic biological studies since the 1990s, when interest in polymetallic nodule mining created a need to characterize the ecosystem that could be affected by mining operations. These studies have documented more than 800 species of organisms in the area, many of them new to science. However, none of the organisms documented in that catalog matched the characteristics of the moving object. Neither its dimensions, speed, movement pattern, nor the absence of bioluminescence corresponded to any recorded species. The hypothesis that the object could be a large cephalopod, specifically a giant squid or colossal squid, was considered and discarded. Giant squid of the species Architeuthis dux have been documented in the Pacific at great depths, and the landmark video of the first live giant squid captured in its natural habitat was obtained in 2004 by Japanese researchers from the National Institute of Polar and Oceanic Science at a depth of 900 meters in the North Pacific. However, giant squid do not move along the seabed in the way the Sebastian object did. They are pelagic animals that swim in the water column, not demersal organisms that walk on the sediment. The movement recorded by the Sebastian was clearly contact with the seabed, with what appeared to be supporting structures that the object used to propel itself across the sediment rather than swimming freely in the water. Like, subscribe, and share. The possibility that the object was an organism entirely new to science is the one the marine biologists on the team have considered most seriously since the images were captured. The deep ocean remains the least explored territory on the planet, and the rate of discovery of new species on each deep-sea expedition is consistently higher than in any other environment on Earth. It is estimated that less than 20% of the ocean floor has been directly surveyed by scientific instruments, and that the fauna of the Great Abyssal Plains of the Central Pacific, where the Clarion-Clipperton Zone is located, is extremely incompletely described. In that context, the existence of an organism 2 to 3 meters long moving along the seafloor at speeds that no known bottom-dwelling invertebrate can achieve is not implausible. The history of marine biology is full of organisms that scientists considered impossible until they found them. The analysis of the Sebastian images was conducted independently by 3 groups of marine biologists: the Schmidt Ocean Institute team, the Department of Marine Biology at the University of Hawaii, and the Center for Deep Biology at the Monterey Bay Oceanographic Institute, known as MBARI. All 3 groups agreed that the object did not correspond to any known bottom-dwelling organism, but they diverged in their hypotheses about its nature. The MBARI team suggested it could be a giant polychaete, a segmented worm of the type that inhabits the seafloor worldwide but can reach extraordinary sizes in the abyssal depths. The largest known deep-sea polychaetes reach up to 3 meters in length, although those that reach that size are extremely slow-moving. The Hawaii group proposed that it could be a new type of echinoderm, possibly related to sea cucumbers but with radically different locomotor adaptations. The Schmidt Institute team refrained from proposing any specific taxonomic classification and recommended a follow-up expedition to obtain samples of the organism. The follow-up expedition to the sighting site was conducted in March 2023. The Sebastian returned to the coordinates where the object had been observed and performed 4 additional dives, searching to re-record the organism or find evidence of its presence in the sediment. The dives did not find the same object, but they did record patterns of furrows and tracks in the bottom sediment that the team's biologists described as consistent with the movement of an organism of the estimated dimensions for the October 2022 object. The tracks suggested that the organism regularly moved across that area of the seafloor, and that its movement left characteristic marks in the fine sediment covering the polymetallic nodules. Although the absence of the organism on this second expedition was disappointing, the traces found confirmed that something had been moving in that area of the deep Pacific, and that it was not a one-off anomaly or a misinterpretation of the initial images. The importance of the discovery goes beyond the identification of a possible new species. It highlights once again the enormous gap between what we know about deep-sea ecosystems and what actually lives in those depths. The Clarion-Clipperton area is currently targeted by mining companies from multiple countries that have applied for exploration licenses to extract polymetallic nodules from the seabed. The International Seabed Authority, the United Nations body that regulates mining in international waters, has issued more than 30 exploration licenses in the area since the 1990s. If organisms the size of the object recorded by the Sebastian, which are still unknown to science, live in that area, the impact of mining operations on these unknown organisms is a question no one can answer because no one yet knows what they are or how they live. The scientific debate surrounding the object of the Sebastian is part of a broader discussion about the limits of our biological knowledge of the deep ocean. Systematic exploration of the deep seabed did not begin in earnest until the 1950s and 60s, with the development of the first bathyscaphs and submersibles capable of reaching the bottom of the great ocean trenches. In the 70 years since then, each deep-sea expedition has added new species to the catalog of deep-sea life, and the rate of discovery shows no sign of slowing. The Census of Marine Life, a 10-year project that concluded in 2010 with the participation of more than 2,700 scientists from 80 countries, documented more than 6,000 species new to science in the deep ocean regions it studied alone, and estimated that the proportion of still unknown deep-sea species could exceed 90% of the actual total. In that context, the existence of a large, mobile, and unknown organism in the deep Central Pacific is precisely what scientists should expect to find, although the scale of surprise at finding it is not diminished by that. The Clarion-Clipperton area where the object was observed is also one of the most threatened marine environments on the planet due to the economic pressures of the global energy transition. The polymetallic nodules on the seabed in this area contain concentrations of nickel, cobalt, manganese, and copper that, in many cases, exceed those of the richest terrestrial deposits, and the growing demand for these minerals for lithium-ion battery manufacturing is generating enormous pressure to begin commercial mining. The Canadian company The Metals Company, formerly known as Deep Green, holds exploration licenses in several areas of Clarion-Clipperton and has stated its intention to begin commercial mining operations as soon as the international regulatory framework allows. Opponents of deep-sea mining, including more than 600 scientific and environmental organizations worldwide that signed a 2021 appeal for a moratorium on such activity, argue that the impact of mining operations on ecosystems we do not yet fully understand could be irreversible. The mysterious object from the sub-bastion is exactly the kind of argument those opponents need to prove that science has not yet finished describing what lives at the bottom of the Pacific. Like, subscribe, and share. See you next time.